the one big beautiful bill rolled back the bonus depreciation and made it permanent, at least for the next 3.5 years, to where you can. And it was last year, sorry, 2026. Last year, that it made it permanent, and so now you can get 100% bonus depreciation. And what that means is, especially as somebody who's in a 1099, or even if you're working a W-2, if you go get a short-term rental, it's a rough estimate that about 25% of that can be given back to you, or at least reduced on your taxable income.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow Podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host. I'm so glad to have you back listening to the show or watching, if that's what you're doing in replay mode. You can watch it on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn, and it's all over the place. But we appreciate you having me on the show to listen. We got a great guest today, Niyi Adewole. He's from Atlanta, and guess what? He's in the same brokers as I am. We're both with EXP, and he also got the vision of having a investor agent team like I did. And so far, he's got 10 agents in different markets. So if you're looking for an investor agent, you got your pick of the litter here. So you got the two gurus on the same podcast. How about them apples? So Niyi, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you doing this. I know how busy you are, and especially in Atlanta. And I know you got a storm coming, but I really I feel blessed to have you on the show. So thank you for joining us.
Come on now, Gary, I'm blessed to be here, and thank you for having me. And it's always cool to see a fellow EXP agent that is crushing it kind of partner together.
You got it. So, I always like to start at the beginning. I know, like for me, I didn't start off when I was a kid saying I was going to be a real estate agent. I wanted to be an astronaut. That was my dream. I got to work for NASA for a bit. I got to go in 2 shuttles, but I didn't get to fly in them. But I got close, But in any case, it all started with investing. That's what got me into brokers. I had no intention to be a realtor at all. But tell me about your story. I want people to hear maybe if there's like a tipping point where you realize, man, this is really what I'd want to do for myself. If you can share that, that'd be great,
Sure. I'd say my story is very similar, minus the NASA piece. I was never sharp enough to get over there. So that's an awesome accomplishment. But I started off in college not really knowing what I wanted to do. I started off as an engineering major and then switched over to business because I had a knack for sales. And while I was in college, I was actually playing football. And so just like everybody else that is playing a sport in college, I thought, man, I'm going to go to the NFL and that's going to take care of everything. Those dreams were shot down when I got injured my junior year. I realized, like, all right, that's not going to happen, and have to focus on building other skills. And so when I graduated college, I was blessed with the internships that I did to get into a medical device sales role, which for anybody that's in sales in a corporate setting, medical and tech are some of the top sales roles that you can be in. And so I was able to join through basically an intern program and kind of work my way up. And while I was starting to make some income, I wanted to know, hey, what are some of the best ways that I can grow this to where I don't have to watch my back as we continue down this path? I met some people that had been at Baxter, which is the company I worked at for 30 plus years, and they were getting to the point where they were kind of done with it. And you can see the energy and the fun was gone, but they were doing it out of a necessity. And I did not want that to be me 30 years down the road. And so I started reading books, listening to podcasts, and I stumbled across in 2015, the Bigger Pockets podcast, and I was hooked. And one of the things they talked about on there was doing something called a house hack, which is essentially buying a house, living in one unit, renting the rest out to help cover your biggest expense, which is your living. And it just stuck in my mind. And in 2016, I bought my first property, which was a house hack, a triplex where I lived in one unit, rent the other 2 out, and essentially lived for free. And I've been investing ever since then. But to answer your question, no, I never thought about getting my license. I actually built up my whole real estate portfolio to about 30 units before I started to consider getting my license, because I just loved real estate and wanted to be able to help others and continue to build my portfolio.
Yeah. Where did you go to school, by the way? Where did you play football?
Temple University up in Philly.
Nice. Oh, yeah. I know it well. Yeah. So I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm on the opposite side of the state right now. I'm in north of Pittsburgh. But I've got family in Philly and students on the team in Philly, and great sports town, So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So now the investing, did you start doing that in Philly, or did you start doing that down in Atlanta, or what was the transition there,
Man, so I've lived all over the place, right? So when I was finishing school, I got that job with Baxter that moved me to Chicago. So I was there for about 1.5 years. That's when I discovered Bigger Pockets and started listening to it. And then my first role out of that internship was a portfolio rep, essentially an account rep for Louisville, Kentucky. Now, when they told me I was going to Louisville, right, I couldn't even pick it out on the map. I'd never been there. I was thinking Louisville was like Louisiana. So I'm looking at the bottom of the map near New Orleans, like, okay, where is this thing? And they're like, you're going to Kentucky. I'm like, what? Long story short, I got there and I made the most of it. And I said, you know what? The cost of living is pretty cheap here. Let me just plant my roots and go after that first investment. And so that's where I bought the first one. And then when I got promoted a year and a half later and moved to Boston to work in medical device sales, which is a step up, I continued to take most of the commissions and the money that I earned and invested it really within about a square mile of the area that I used to live and where I bought my first property in Kentucky.
Yeah. Well, the good news is you're actually pronouncing Louisville the correct way. A lot of people never been there. Say, well, I'm going to Louisville. I'm like, well, don't say that there. Just call it Louisville.
That was me. I got corrected by about 8 people before I got it. So put that on the citizens of Louisville.
Great town, though. Lots of history there. But, of course, Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, right? And, of course, the Churchill Downs. And if you like whiskey, there's, plenty of whiskey in Kentucky. So, in any case, so you've been in some pretty good markets. Boston clearly is a lot tougher of a market. It's more competitive. Prices are higher. And the rules are stricter, things like that. So do you still have properties in those areas, or have you consolidated mostly everything you have now down in Atlanta, or what's your portfolio look like? How far?
Yeah. So I'll definitely zoom in on that piece and just tell what my portfolio is today. So I had those 30 units in Louisville. When I moved to Boston, to your point, completely different market. Up there, a tenant can literally live in your place without paying anything for like 6 to 12 months, and you can't even get them out. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. But what I did do is I bought a condo up there and I house hacked that where I had a roommate because that's a normal thing up there. And that's what I did during the time. And then when I got promoted again to a director level, director of the Southeast, I had my pick of the litter anywhere in the Southeast. I sold that condo and I picked and chose and moved to Atlanta because I believe this market's one of the best ones to be in over the next decade. I was between here, the Carolinas, and Florida. And narrowed it down to Florida and here. And I'm happy I chose here because of the insurance stuff and all the hurricanes that came through and knocked everything out. But I chose Atlanta because the metrics. You got 30 of the Fortune 1000 companies based here and all the things. But what I've since done since moving here is started investing in my backyard again, which feels great. And so now I own 13 units here. 8 of those are short-term rentals, 5 long-term rentals. And then the units that I had in Louisville, Kentucky, I've since sold all those. And I actually went in and partnered with my investor-friendly realtor out there who helped me acquire all those units and helped me sell all those units. And we built self-storage from the ground up, which we finished 2 years ago now, because we're in 26, 2 years ago. And that's been amazing. So we got brand new self-storage that we did. And we bought some other land that we plan to build townhomes on. And then I invested some more of that money back into Atlanta, and I'm continuing to grow my Atlanta portfolio.
Awesome. Well, I want to dig into the meat and potatoes. Everybody's always wondering, we all have our own unique way of doing things. Like house hacking is a strategy, but there's lots of different ways to implement the strategy. Sorry, I thought I was getting ready to sneeze. But if you could start off on that, take us through maybe like your last purchase. How did you start? What are you using for data gathering and these particular tools? And by the way, I want to interject here real quickly. Where you are, we've done a lot of business there too, and investing particularly. In the county data there is bar none the best I've seen in the entire country. You can access it. You can literally search for gas stations on the county records and find all the gas stations all over, I don't know if it's the state or just the county, but it was the best website I've ever seen to showcase county property data. It was amazing. But what are some of the tools you're using? How do you start? Like education, then information, then action, and kind of dig in and because everybody listening, this is where you want to. Don't write if you're driving. Just we'll give you the show notes later, but pull over if you need to, because I love having guests like me because you get their own unique spin on things. Remember, little caveat here: learn from everybody you can. And just because something works for somebody in one area doesn't mean it will work for you in another area. Theoretically, it would, but you may have to tweak it, modify it a little bit. Just keep that in mind. I just want you to learn as much as you can learn, thankfully we have people like me in the world who, like me, are willing to share. So anyway, sorry, you go ahead and take off. So,
No, come on now. And I love what you said. And that's a major shout out to the Metro of Atlanta because they do try to make it easier. And just last year, it became the sixth largest metro in the U.S., jumping over Washington, which is pretty cool. But when it came down to first picking a market, because I think that's super important, a lot of people are looking at like 8 different states to invest in. It's like, guys, you need to narrow down. And then further than that, narrow down to a city. When it came to doing that, I wanted the macroeconomics to be a rising tide that can rise the ship and rise all boats. And so when I was looking at the different areas that I could choose, I purposely chose a city where over the next decade, it would be hard for this not to go up and to the right. So as I mentioned before, you got 30 of the Fortune 1000 companies here. So that's your anchor from a business standpoint. You got the Home Depots, the Coca-Colas, the Deltas, the FedExes. All these things are based in the Metro of Atlanta. Not to mention, in recent years, in the last 4 years now, Airbnb put their East Coast headquarters here. Nike put their tech hub here. Rivian is building a $5 billion factory southwest of the city. And you have many other employers like Microsoft building a 90-acre campus here. You got the Atlanta Beltline where the city's pouring a lot of money into just bringing all the neighborhoods up. And so those were some of the things that I researched and saw like, hey, I like this because essentially I could throw a dart and be okay as long as I hang on to that property. The next piece I looked at was the price to rent ratio and what that looks like in the terms of, just the rules of thumb that you can use to find properties. And so here it's not as great as a Kentucky or as, an Ohio. But the reason for that is the home prices haven't gone up as much over, X amount of time period. So I was literally just doing an exercise with my team just before this call. And we were looking at Mississippi or Jackson, Mississippi versus Atlanta, right? And we were pulling up data. Okay, since 2010, which was the bottom for a lot of cities, what has the appreciation for the home values been? And for Atlanta, around 2010, the median price was about 109K. And right now it's sitting at 395. So that's 4X, right? What it was back then. For Mississippi, the median price back then was like 150 for Jackson. And now it's sitting at like 268, right? So, definitely not 1X, maybe like, 0.6, right? Something of that nature.
Yeah.
And so when you look at those type of metrics, and then you look at the rent as well, having increased along the way, that's kind of what I look for as far as the city. So after you get that narrowed down, when I look at actual properties, I use rules of thumb to rule out the majority of them. And so we use something in Atlanta called the 0.8% rule, because getting the 1% rule is still only available in areas where the homes haven't appreciated as much. But 0.8% is doable. It's hard to find, but we've been successful in finding that for our clients and for ourselves. And so if you're going to buy a house for 400K, you want to see that it's at least going to rent for 3,200. If I'm at, for 3,200 per month, or 0.8% before you go ahead and pursue that house. And then there's opportunity to make that deal sweeter, whether it be offering an amount and asking for seller credits to buy down the interest rate to make that delta better, or whether it be just offering a little bit less to where, hey, all the numbers look better. And so I'm rambling right now. Do you want to hit me with any questions on this piece? Sorry.
Yeah, well, you're right. The 1% rule been standard for a long time, and it works in some markets, it doesn't in others. Clearly, but won't work in Boston. But the 0.8 rule. So now, just for everybody listening, we have people who are brand new, people who are seasoned investors, and everybody likes to hear each other's strategies. So that 0.8, though, is that gross rents coming in, or is that net after expenses are paid and everything?
Gross. We wanted a metric that we can use up front, and we've already done the numbers on the back end to make sure this works, which takes a long time. But we wanted a metric that we use up front, just like the 1% rule, and quickly rule out properties and find, okay, out of these 1,000, which are the top 10 or which are the ones that actually work? And so that's where that 0.8 comes in. And then from there, we use tools like the Bigger Pockets calculator due to a full analysis. We use Rental Meter to pull the rental comps, because Rental Meter has been around forever. If we're helping somebody with short-term rentals, we use a rule of thumb called the 15% rule, which is, hey, if you're buying a house for 400K, you want to see that AirDNA, which is a software we subscribe to, is pulling in 60K annually, right? Or 15% of that purchase price before you go after that. And so we use those up front to go after a property. And then the cool thing about Atlanta versus some other states like California, I don't know if there's many others, but when you put a property under contract, you have, say 5 to 12 days in due diligence where you can walk away for any reason, right?
Yeah.
And get your earnest money back. And so we use the rule of thumb to get a property under contract. And once we have it under contract, that's when we run the detailed microscopic analysis.
Yeah.
We're pulling everything. Because if you spent time doing that on every single property, right? And this is just for residential, right? Multifamily, you need to do that. But if you spend time doing this on every single property up front before you even put an offer in, the property's going to be gone before you even get to it. So that's kind of what we've worked out over the years.
Yeah. Yeah. Air DNA is a great tool. So everybody listen, it's Air, just like Air Jordan, and DNA, like the DNA in your body. There's another one called Mash Visor, like mashed potatoes, and Advisor, like the visor in your car. Mash Visor is good too. Different looks and feels. Try them out both. I think they both have free trials. I don't know if they still do anymore. But the good news about Atlanta is the real estate market and the rules are still more, they're still owner friendly, right? They don't have a lot of restrictions. A lot of places around the country, guys, have started pushing back at the community level, pushing back on Airbnb. And so you want to find a market that's business friendly, okay? And that's generally, I'm not knocking New York and Chicago and San Francisco and all them. It's just a fact that when you're in the smile states, the southern states along the coast, generally they're more business friendly. And tenants have rights. They absolutely do. They have the right of possession. But what's happening in some markets is the legislation coming out is pushing that to the limit, and they're taking away rights from owner rights. For example, and again, I love New York City. I'm not a big city person, but I like going there and I stay in the Marriott Marquis right in Times Square and have a blast. But what's happening there now is if you're selling a house and it's tenant occupied, you can't make the tenant leave. And the tenant doesn't leave, you can't sell. And of course they're like, well, you can't make them leave because where are they going to go? Well, it's not. That's part of the business of renting. Sometimes you got to find another place to rent. So it's extremely difficult. We've had deals fall through because tenants, and once a tenant realizes the power that they have, they don't go anywhere. They just stay put. And now they just passed a rule in the city up there that all properties that go up for sale need to be available to charitable organizations first, right? And then owner occupants and then investors last. Now, our federal government has done that with HUD properties for years. Any actually not just HUD, but any quasi government backed, FHA, all those, they're available for charitable organizations first, then homeowners, and then finally investors. And those are government owned properties. But technically, we own them, the taxpayer. I'm not arguing with that. What I am going to argue against is, arm's length transactions. One of the rights of the owner is to dispose of the property. They should be able to do that without somebody who has no risk. The owner has the risk, not the tenant. The only risk the tenant has is the pain in the neck of going and rent a truck and moving their stuff to another place. That pales in comparison to the risk that the owner takes, So in any case, I'm going to get off my soapbox, but I just want to tell you guys, a place like Atlanta is awesome. And by the way, Atlanta is one of the few cities in the country that grew so big and so fast, they had to build another beltway. They got two beltways, an inner loop and an outer loop. Where else are you going to find that? Not to mention Hartsfield Airport, the busiest airport in the world. Okay, and I've flown out of there many times. It's a great airport, and it is busy. So you're going to wait in line for food, man. Let me tell you, But in any case, so back to the investing. So you started off house hacking. Now, are your properties now? Are you doing all Airbnb, or do you have other strategies you're using? Like, what's another one I've heard? It's like advanced house hacking. You're renting out the individual rooms in
like
the house, but you're not actually there. So
yeah. So you're talking about like a pad split, and I just want to comment on that piece.
Yeah.
That was what you just said about New York and states like that is the reason I was scared about Boston and stayed away from it. Yeah. I was reading into it. It was one of the things I was looking at, and I came to the conclusion that you're spot on. Like, hey, this is a little bit crazy. Somebody can stay in here for X amount of months, and you're just hemorrhaging money. So it didn't make sense for me. But that's more power to the people that are able to do it up there. It just was not my cup of tea. But yeah, so the main strategies that I'm doing personally right now is we did build that self-storage from the ground up. I'm also doing still small multifamily long-term rentals, right? When it makes sense. And I'm doing a lot of short-term rentals. The thing that I found about the short-term rentals that I like, and I at least get one a year, is just the tax savings, right? Earlier this year, the one big beautiful bill rolled back the bonus depreciation and made it permanent, at least for the next 3.5 years, to where you can. And it was last year, sorry, 2026. Last year that it made it permanent, and so now you can get 100% bonus depreciation. And what that means is, especially as somebody who's in a 1099, or even if you're working a W-2, if you go get a short-term rental, it's a rough estimate that about 25% of that can be given back to you, or at least reduced on your taxable income. For example, if I buy a $400,000 short-term rental, 100,000 or roughly that can be reduced from my taxable income if I do that cost segregation. And so I've been doing that consistently at least once a year to save on taxes and keep all the funds and be able to invest more. And then I'm always on the look for small multifamily investments, both for myself as well as for clients.
Yeah, cost segregation for the newer folks out there. What that really means is, if you look at an asset, the building itself on a piece of property, for the purpose of this discussion, is a 27.5 year depreciation. In other words, each year you get the write-off. If you look at 27.5 years, or write that do the ratio, write that off, and your taxes is a phantom write-off. It's not an actual expense. It's a paper expense. What cost segregation is, you take what's called accelerated depreciation. That's done on, well, if you have an apartment complex, you might have a truck there with a snowplow. Well, you can depreciate that over 7 years or 5 years. Refrigerators could be 3 years or 5 years. I don't remember all the different numbers, but they're accelerated. They're fast. They depreciate faster than the building itself. So what you do is you segregate those out for the building, right? And you depreciate those faster, so you get a bigger payback. It's a big strategy. Always has been a big strategy in big commercial properties. But now, because of technology and the proliferation of information, folks like me and I and you can do this on our own duplexes and triplexes. We don't have to own a 500-unit apartment complex or a strip mall or anything like that. So keep that in mind. If you're not doing that now, listeners, if you're not doing this now, you need to talk to your tax accountant. If they don't know what you're talking about, you need a new tax accountant. Okay, it's the law, and you're going to use the law in your favor. So, in any case, sorry to interject there so much, Niyi, but I'm loving this conversation, man. I hope you listeners are too, because you're getting the really good nuts and bolts of investing. And where Niyi is not too far from probably where you are. You just always look for people that are a little bit ahead of you and tag along with them and learn and listen. So if everybody out there, remember, Niyi has a team of agents just like I do. And so where are the agents, Niyi? Where do you have your investor-friendly agents?
Hey there, did you know you can join a free real estate mastermind session every Monday night? It's called Monday Night Live, and it kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm Gary Wilson, and every week I host this live class, joined by investor agents from across the country and around the world. And here's the best part: no selling, no recruiting, just pure, actionable real estate education. Every Monday, we cover everything from the basics to advanced strategies. We even bring in expert guests once or twice a month. Topics like how to buy property using crypto, how AI is reshaping the real estate landscape, what the metaverse and blockchain mean for real estate deals today. Whether you're a new investor or a seasoned pro, you'll walk away with real value, and you'll have the chance to ask questions live, connect with others, and expand your network. Sound good? Then head over to realestatewithgarywilson.com. Click the Resources tab, select Monday Night Live, and you'll find recent replays plus a full schedule. You can register for any upcoming session, even weeks in advance. And if you're watching this on social media, just check the video description for the direct registration link. I'll see you Monday night. Bring your questions, your notepad, and your drive to grow. I look forward to connecting with you.
Yeah, so we got a team of 10. It's the Ikabo Home Team, EKABO Home. And Ikabo is Yoruba for welcome. So it's really the Welcome Home Team.
Cool.
But my teammates are based in Georgia and Florida. And fun fact, over half the team actually started off as investors that I worked with personally and helped them buy 1, 2, or 3 deals before they went and got their license and were inspired to join the team and are now helping others. So I don't actively go out and recruit a lot for the team. It kind of just happened and grew over time. But now we're able to help people in Georgia, Florida, and we're hoping to one day be as big as you, Gary. I mean, you are crushing it. And I love that you are being able to help people across the board, across multiple states, because there's so many people out there trying to figure this thing out. And having an investor-friendly realtor will cut your learning curve more than in half.
Well, what I figured out, I used to be a trainer. I actually taught the investor agent best practices class for another big box brokerage years ago. traveled all over the U.S. And I taught for all 50 states and 3 Canadian provinces. And what I learned was 56% of investor transactions are out of state. But they might be living in Atlanta, but they're also buying in, Texas and South Carolina and Florida and Tennessee and Alabama. And a lot of times they're coming down from Canada too. But that's when I got the vision. So now what I do is actually I do teach the agents like you do how to invest. I give them all the training and the tools, the strategies, everything, so that they can then walk the walk and talk the talk. And more importantly, I want them to invest. It's not a requirement to be on a team. But my thought is, Niyi, and you probably feel the same way, is I met a lot of agents over the years who don't have a retirement plan. And they're just living basically month to month, year to year, transaction to transaction. They get in their 60s and 70s like, holy crap, they got to keep working. If they had just bought one duplex when they were in their 30s, that could make a world of difference. If they had 2 duplexes, just imagine if they had 10 single family homes that were paid off and they could do the house hacking or pad split. By the way, I met the owners there in Atlanta. We went to lunch one day. We were talking about doing a joint venture.
Nice.
They got a great product, man. So, in any case, everybody listening, all these things we're mentioning, we're dropping these names and other strategies. Write them down and research them. Look up Niyi. Actually, Niyi, can they find you online? Do you have a website, a YouTube channel, anything like that people can look at? Or
Yeah, if you want to Google my name or Ekabo Home, you will find us. And Ekabo Home is EKABO Home.
EKABO.home. Okay. Or is it ekabo.home or ekabohome.com?
EkaboHome.com. Or
Gotcha.
just Google Ekabo Home.
There you go. All right, good. Now, trying to think if there's anything else. Is there anything you'd like to share that maybe we didn't talk about? We talked about strategy, some techniques, some areas. Those are all the things investors need to know. They now know how to get a hold of you, which is really good. But something maybe you learned from your granddad or your mom, something that stuck with you and you apply in how you live your life and conduct your business,
Yeah, I think that what you said here at the end about not having a retirement plan, most agents, is huge. And I'd go further to say not even just agents, but just everybody in general, right? You want to, as quickly as you can, start to take some of that power back into your hands. And all it takes is 1, 2, 3 investment properties over time to help you achieve that. And so I saw that from a corporate standpoint. The reason that I left my company, I was one of the risers, right? They were like, "Nee, you're going to be, VPs, all this stuff." Like you're going to keep rising up this thing. But I personally left because I could see the writing on the wall and I saw the next levels and how much time was required of them. And I wanted to start a family. I'm like, man, like this is kind of counterintuitive to being present, right? It'd be very hard to do all this stuff and still be present. And so the thing that made it easier for me to say, you know what, I'm good, was because over the 7 years before that, I was investing in real estate consistently. I had built up that portfolio and it just got better every single year. And I had that cushion to make me feel comfortable saying, you know what, I can walk away from this. I don't have the golden handcuffs. I'm not tied to doing this. And so circling back to the point that you made, the earlier you start, the better. But even if it's later, just get started, get something in ownership, buy some type of property that makes sense. And you will see just the weight that starts to come off your shoulders.
It does. It gives you financial peace. It's basically like, for me, real estate in the beginning, that was my end game. Like, you know what? I'm going to be a big investor and I'm going to retire. And I did. I built up a portfolio of like 250 units, and I left my corporate job when I was 40. And thankfully, knock on wood, I've never looked back. It's been 23 years. And I'm still growing today, building businesses. And so what happened, though, is that the real estate actually became the foundation upon which I launched other businesses. I ended up kind of getting burned out on it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I had so many units, and every day is a big pile of headaches, big pile of bills, and phone never stops. I'm like, holy cow, I just created a monster of a nightmare for myself. I was free. I bought my own freedom. Well, I really was not free. So, through other life changes, I came to teaching and fell in love with it. And thankfully, God just gave me the right opportunities, the right time, the right person crossed my path, saying the right thing at the right time. I mean, that's how miracles occur. I'm not trying to preach. I'm just telling you, you just go with life. Don't fight it. When something comes your way, and it might not make sense at the moment, but I promise you, it will later on. And so what I'm doing now is all because of what I did in those early days. So now when I invest, it's more passive. You can do what's called fractional borrowing, fractional buying. You can own a fraction of ownership of a property. It's direct ownership. It's not like you're going through a mutual fund or a REIT. You actually own a physical portion of the property, and you can buy it and sell it whenever you want. I like that. I like that flexibility. I don't want nobody knows who I am. I like that even better, by the way. Because if people know who you are and they think you're rich, you're gonna get sued. People will slip on a bar of soap on your front porch and sue you. It happens. I'm telling you, it's called enterprise and litigation. So play defense, make yourself anonymous, right? I've been on the stage, and I'm telling you, it feels good, and it's a good ego, a booster. But just be aware, you're going to be a target. So don't be a target. Be low key. Help other people. Teach other people. Do like what Niyi's doing. Do like I'm doing. When you learn how to do something, don't keep it to yourself. That's not abundance living. That's scarcity living. You can help other people, and you can make a living out of it too. That's exactly what this is why I like this podcast. And I got somebody here doing exactly what I'm doing, and it kind of affirms what I'm doing. And I can look at his face. You're probably listening to this in a recording mode, but he's smiling. He's a happy guy. Doesn't have any gray hair. I know you're going to say, well, he doesn't have any hair at all, but you know what? Hey, it's not great. So, in any case, any final words of wisdom? Anything you want to share before we log off here? By the way, I want to thank you again for doing this. This is a big gift for you to all the people listening.
No, Gary, it's been an absolute pleasure. And honestly, what you've been able to accomplish and build out is something that we're striving to do. And so I'm definitely going to continue following the journey of what you're doing, which is amazing as motivation. But the last thing that I'll say is just wherever you are, just take that next step. It can get a little bit overwhelming if you think about it. Like if I were to say, right, we're in 2 states right now, and I want to be in 50 states, and Gary's already in 38. It's overwhelming thinking about going from 2 states to 38. But if you just think about the next step, okay, how do we get one more state? Okay, and then one more, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, it gets a lot easier. And so when it comes to this investing piece, just focus on the most important next step, whether it be, hey, I need to go get pre-approved. Okay, I need to go find a deal. And you will achieve your goal if you keep doing that.
Gotcha. Well, listen, thanks again for doing this, and for listeners out there, thank you for listening. We appreciate your participation. It's been, I think, going on 8 years now. We're downloaded, I think, close to 50 countries. It's amazing. And the journey is it's still like it's brand new to me, actually. So, but leave your reviews. We love your reviews, man. Keep them coming. That's what makes the podcast world go around. And we don't get paid for this. This is a community service. So we appreciate you doing it. If you're an agent out there, a real estate agent, and you're looking for the next thing in your business career, look either one of us up. We both at EXP. So we got, we have our commission income, of course. We have investment income from our investments. We get revenue share. And guess who owns EXP? We do. We own 70% of it. Okay. No other company can say that. We own 70%. We control it. Huge difference. Okay. Be an owner. Don't be a follower. Be an owner. Be a leader. And I'll see you at the top. So God bless you. God bless all your loved ones. And I will see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.